We've got a random grab bag of Magic the Gathering news today. The final Heroes of the Realm card has appeared. There are big changes being made to the Judges Academy, and somehow the deck lists for the big upcoming Worlds tournament have been leaked.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we are here for yet again another installment of Mega Magic News. That is a very satisfying thing to bellow. So we have a number of items to go over today. We have the final Heroes of the Realm card, which is what we're going to start out with because I'm most excited about it. Let's get it on the screen now and take a look at this greedy goodness. This is Eurokas. Eurokas! 2 green and 4 for a 6/6 legendary tree folk wizard. I already love it. First of all, I love mono green, but I mean, this is a tree folk wizard. How can you not love the concept, right? So what does it do? When Eurokas enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 blue human wizard creature tokens equal to the number of differently named lands you control. This doesn't care about whether they're basics or non-basics. So you could have a crazy amount of lands. If you're not familiar with the idea behind these Heroes of the Realm cards, essentially they're created as rewards for Wizards of the Coast employees. I did a video covering the other Heroes of the Realm cards that have appeared this year, so I'll link that on the screen at the end of the video if you want to see the other variations of these cards. But this was given out to one of Wizards of the Coast brand managers, if I'm not mistaken, and so I think the idea with the different 1/1 creatures, the number of blue wizards you get for each land is based on the fact that you will have different people handling different parts of the world. So essentially for each differently named land, so pick different parts of our actual geographic map, right? And then for each one of those, create a 1/1 blue wizard. Well, those are the employees of Wizards of the Coast, the little wizardlings. So, I mean, that is a cool connection to the actual underlying group that works on Magic that ties into the card, which I really like. But it doesn't just make a bunch of 1/1 wizards. It admittedly would be pretty disappointing if you were paying, well, actually, you know what? If you had like 10, 12 differently named lands, paying 6 mana for a 6/6 that gave you 12 1/1s, that wouldn't be too shabby all on its own. But it does have the additional ability, pay 1 blue, 1 green, and 4. Draw a card for each wizard you control. They each get +1/+1 until end of turn for each card in your hand. So the more wizards you have, the more powerful you become. The more you gain, and the more the wizards gain in strength. It's actually pretty formidable when you take a look at it. I love this card very much. It's a cool concept. The artwork literally shows this gigantic tree that is springing up off of Earth. Is this the first time? This may be the first time that Earth is actually represented on a Magic card, although maybe not. I mean, it is a pretty straightforward concept. You can see this tree sprouting up off of one of Earth's continents, and it's going up so high into the sky that it probably reaches past Earth's atmosphere, and you can see what I assume is the sun rising behind it. I guess it could theoretically be the sunset as well, but look at all like the clouds that are floating around the top as well. It shows you how massively huge this tree is. We're seeing the Earth from a scale where you can't actually see any sort of cities or even mountainous regions. Everything looks flat in comparison to this tree. So I love the idea behind this. It really does encapsulate the concept of a department at Wizards of the Coast and also mechanically executes it in a really enjoyable way. So when it comes to Heroes of the Realm card, this is like a 10 out of 10 in terms of execution. It feels great. and it feels powerful. So I would definitely enjoy owning one of these, but considering there'll probably be less than a dozen of these in the whole world, I never will. And again, if you want to see the other crazy cards in this set, watch the video that'll be linked at the end here. Now, let us move on to the next subject, which is basically the deck lists for the upcoming Worlds tournament have been accidentally leaked or ferreted out. I'm not 100% sure because this was actually first showing up on Twitter and it wasn't showing up in English. So I've had to rely on secondhand translations and things like that. But essentially what's going on is somebody has managed to find all of the deck lists for all of the big name players who are playing in the upcoming Worlds tournament. So a leak like that is somewhat newsworthy, but because I don't really talk about hardcore gameplay techniques or overall builds, I'm not really going to go into the deck lists. You can find them posted online, either on Twitter or Reddit if you want. But to sum it up, basically what's going on with this Worlds is you've got two styles of decks. You have aggro decks, either mono white, mono green, or a mix of different color aggro decks, and then a bunch of Epiphany decks using all runs Epiphany, which is that big, huge blue spell that lets you take extra turns, right? So, I mean, I'm not really surprised. The cards that let you take extra turns can have a big impact on the game, but they also care about what the current meta's like. So if you're dealing with oh, look at these extra time taking cards, or I got an extra turn from this, sometimes it doesn't really affect the format. And in other times, like that Nexus of Fate, when they made that the buy a box card, I made a video, by the way, saying how bad an idea that was. But anyways, when they made that card dominated so hardcore they had to step in and do something. Allrun's Epiphany isn't really dominating on that level, but it's interesting to note that it's Epiphany versus aggro, and that's going to be the breakdown for Worlds. Now, the next item on the list are the changes that the Judges Academy has decided to make. Now, ultimately, I personally am coming out and saying I don't think that making these choices were very wise from a long-term health perspective of the Judges Academy. If you're not familiar with the Judges Academy, basically what happened was for most of Magic's history, judges were essentially volunteers that you could take these different tests, become a level 1, a level 2, level 3 judge or whatever, but the idea was you would basically help out your local community. I know this because I was part of the judge program at one point in my life, giving up my time for free to judge Magic events. But then what happened was the judges end up suing Wizards of the Coast, some of them, right? And Wizards of the Coast was like, whoa, no, we don't want to deal with lawsuits or anything like that. So you know what? Actually, we don't need judges. Forget it. From now on, you can just run tournaments without really needing judges at all. Maybe for a bigger event, you might need a level 2, but overall, Wizards just went, let's forget it with the judge thing. And so the Judge Academy was essentially birthed in a moment of desperation where the individuals who already had this judge status and people involved with it wanted to find a way to save the organization. And I think that ultimately they had the right desire in mind. They were trying to help keep the judge program going, but the execution of things didn't really take into account reality. So ultimately what the Judges Academy ended up feeling like was you had to pay them $100 a year. So it went from Magic judges being volunteers who were unpaid to now essentially being volunteers that have to pay $100 to the Judge Academy. And this was basically to pay for the infrastructure of running the Academy. And the deal was basically Wizards of the Coast is going to provide promo cards to the Judges Academy, and then the Judges Academy is going to turn around and give these promo cards to its members. So when the Judge Academy first started, basically what it felt like was you pay $100 or $200 or $300 depending on what level judge you are, which is kind of crazy. If you're a higher level judge, they make you pay more money because you've put more time into it and have more experience. It really felt like an odd setup where the design of the Judge Academy felt more like, how do we keep the Judges organization as a thing? The number one goal was to make sure the Judges Academy continued on as an entity, and everything else felt like an afterthought. And a lot of people kind of good-naturedly got on board, put their money in and said, okay, I'll be a part of this. And so basically I'm saying basically a lot in this video, probably because I don't have absolute details, and I'm trying to explain this in an understandable way without giving too many details, but I do tend to go on and on and on because that is my nature. Anyways, how the Judge Academy appeared from an outsider's perspective was basically pay them the money and then they're going to mail you judge promos, all right? And yes, you will obviously have the accreditation that's required to be able to judge events as well, and they would theoretically teach you to judge for other games and stuff. Like, they tried to present it as this big sort of opportunity for people where it's like, you're going to grow your judging skills, you're going to be like basically qualified to judge for different games and everything like that. Then obviously with what happened with the world with the massive shutdown, big tournaments weren't running anyways. Even small tournaments weren't running anyways. So the judges weren't really getting used that much. So you have that kind of a stumbling block. And the Judges Academy kind of tried to figure out what they were going to do. But ultimately, they decided that the direct mailings weren't really working for them. So they're making changes where they're scrapping the tiered fee system. So it's no longer $100 for level 1, 200 for level 2, 300 for level 3, which makes perfect sense to me. People who are at higher levels shouldn't be forced to pay more to be a volunteer for your organization. In fact, if you have somebody who's put in the work to become a level 3 judge, maybe drop their fees down because they genuinely have a wider base of knowledge, more experience, and have put in more effort than people at the lower tiers, right? But ultimately, they're changing it to $75 a person, but they're getting rid of direct mailings, which means they're not going to mail you promos just for being part of the Judges Academy. They're changing it to a conference-based system. Now, this is something I had kind of heard of before in person from one of my buddies who runs a game shop, because he's part of the Judge Academy. He figured, you know what, I'll be part of the Judge Academy, and that way, I can run my events on a higher level as an official judge. But he was lamenting that they essentially require you to attend these conferences. And that's how it's going to be going forwards. To acquire promos, it will require conference attendance, either in-person conference attendance or digital conference attendance. But the digital conference attendance doesn't seem to be weighed as heavily in terms of the promos you get. Looking over the information that was provided, it's this huge post. It appears that if you go to physical conferences, you're going to be provided twice as many promos as people who go to the digital conferences. But one of the big problems with the digital conferences is that the attendance to them is limited. So even though it's something that's happening online, only X number of people can register for it. And when I was reading over, there was this big post on Reddit where people were talking about it. That's where I originally found out they were making these changes. And when I was reading over that post, I was seeing people talk about this. It feels incredibly unfair that you have, like, I live in a part of the world where you're not offering physical conferences. You only have digital conferences. And you're capping attendance at the digital conferences and saying, if you don't go to the digital conferences, you don't get these promos, right? And I genuinely feel like this is going to be disastrous for the Judge Academy, because I think, now, I could be wrong about this, but when the Judge Academy was first birthed, a lot of talk was made about the promos and people going, I will pay the $100 a year just to get these promos. It's worth it to me. Being a judge on top of it is nice, but really the promos are what's doing it. So if the Judge Academy starts to choke off the supply of promos, all of a sudden, what is for probably a lot of people the biggest incentive for being part of the Judge Academy is going to be gone. And as these people flow out, the Judge Academy is going to feel this drain on the resources, right? They're thinking, we're going to drop the fees down. Everybody only has to pay $75, but you're basically taking, this is the proposition that it was before. Pay us $100 and we will mail you out foil judge promos. Now it's pay us $75, and if you're lucky enough that will allow you to sit in on this thing that you're forced to go through, then you can probably get promos. Do you know what I mean? It's got this kind of vibe where it's like you were guaranteeing people promos before, and now you're limiting the aspect of promos. And apparently in these digital conferences, they would have a secret word that you would need to know to get the promos. And when they did the first conference, according to the post that was made, nobody knew what the secret word was. They didn't understand, and they had to go back and be like, oh no, this slide that we showed you that was some magic term, that's the secret word. And then so for like everyone going on like that, they have to do a secret word. They don't like keep track of actually who's in attendance at these events. You're required to know a secret word to get these promos. And I don't think the Judge Academy realizes that the promos are the biggest draw they have. I mean, I get it. They're trying to go, look, we're not just about the promos. We're about the proper education and community and whatever. And I get that that's what they want their focus to be. And ultimately, that should be what a Judge Academy's focus would be. But if you're looking at it from a real perspective, Wizards of the Coast said, we don't even need these guys. They don't matter whatsoever. So turning around and going, hey, we're not going to give you the promos, but you're going to get the training that Wizards says you don't need, and we're going to certify you, which Wizards says you don't need. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it seems like a really bad business move. Time will tell. Just one man's opinion, but whatever. And speaking of opinions, I guess I'll mention this as well because I saw it in passing. If you guys didn't know already, the Innistrad Midnight Hunt Wizard survey is now up. It's over on the Reddit. There's other places to find it too, but you can go and click on the link and tell Wizards your feedback on Midnight Hunt and other things. It's one of the few things that I think they actually do listen to. Like if you just gripe at people like Rosewater over on Blogatog and you just leave comments on Facebook and stuff, I think Wizards of the Coast pays attention to that. But if you fill out the survey, I think there's at least a chance of your voice being communally heard because they're actively looking for the feedback and you're giving them feedback on questions they want answered. So that's up to you. Figured I'd toss in it at the end of this news update. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Big thank you to all my patrons for supporting my channel. And if you enjoy what I do, then consider joining these fine folk over on Patreon. Thanks for being here. See you next time.